Currently, it is 26 degrees here on the campus of St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley. I'm Jell with your noon news update. Rapper Drake appears to be a big fan of the restaurant Louie in Clayton. The Post-Dispatch reports Canadian superstar visited the eatery 3 consecutive nights last week. He was served mussels, steak, and bolognese. Drake was in town for a sold-out show at the Enterprise Center on Saturday. There is a new leader of the St. Louis County NAACP. The organization has appointed John Gaskin III as its next president. He is the youngest president in the branch's 75-year history. Gaskin is replacing Esther Haywood, who will remain as president emeritus. And the Archdiocese of St. Louis is planning to open its first health clinic early next year in Washington County. The free clinic will be located in Old Mines. It will offer primary care, chronic disease management, mental health care, and social services. The clinic is expected to host about 2,000 medical visits a month. On to the weather. Today, it is partly cloudy, high of 30, low of 19. Tomorrow, mostly sunny, high of 38, low of 27. Thursday, we've got some morning snow with a high of 35, low of 27. Friday, sunny, high of 48, low of 32. And Saturday, cloudy, high of 46, low of 30. Currently, it is 26 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jell, and this has been your noon news update. But please stay tuned, because after a brief break, we will be back with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. We'll kick the show off with the new game releases for this week, what's coming out with next week, what anime are in theaters, and then we will proceed with various video game news and information. Until then, here is Valor by Between the Rivers, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. That was Valor by Between the Rivers here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Jell, and we like to kick the show off with new game releases for this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. And, of course, if anyone new is listening and wondering why I don't talk about PC games, it's because there's way too many games being released on PC to even cover. So just go to Steam. That's where you're going anyway. Anyway, we like to kick the show off with the PS4 first, so let's get started. First of all, Aces of the Luftwaffe Squadron Nebelgeschwader. I'm pretty sure that's actually how it's pronounced. Not 100% sure, but Nebelgeschwader sounds about right. Anyway, Chim Party. Okay, Emerald Shores, Fortnite Deep Freeze It bundle. Gnome's Garden, New Home, Hitman 2, Just Deal With It, Knowledge's Power Decades, My Writing Stables, Life with Horses, Project High-Rise, Architects Edition, Runner 3, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, The Forge, Spyro Reignited Trilogy, and a Spyro Reignited Trilogy Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy Double Pack. By the way, they have partially fixed the Spyro Reignited Trilogy. It now does contain all 3 games on disc to some degree. We're not sure what, but you can now start all 3 without any sort of internet connection. Early on, only the first game was going to be on there, but then they had some bugs to fix. Anyway, following that, Swords and Soldiers 2 Schwarmageddon, The Golf Club 2019 featuring PGA Tour, The Sims 4 Seasons, Fallout 76, Melbit's World, My Hero 1's just as playable character, Inasa Yorashi, The Long Journey Home, YouTuber's Life, OMG Edition, Battlefield 5 Deluxe Edition, Monkey King, Master of the Clouds, SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy is getting Miss X on, is that Friday? No, that's Thursday. Yeah! So all you fans of cross-dressing Iori Yagami, he's coming soon. Ticket to Ride, Word Hunters, and then Distrust, Mars, Chaos Menace, The Quiet Man, and Trailblazers. Is The Quiet Man getting a physical release or something? That's already out. Whatever. Quiet Man's getting released again. Xbox One this week is getting Aces of the Luftwaffe, Squadron Nebelgeschwader, Fortnite Deep Freeze Bundle, Hitman 2, Project High-Rise Architects Edition, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, The Forge, Spyro Reignited Trilogy, and a Spyro Reignited Trilogy Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy Double Pack, The Golf Club 2019 featuring PGA Tour, Fallout 76, My Hero 1's Just as Playable Character Inasa Yoarashi, YouTuber's Life OMG Edition, and Battlefield 5 Deluxe Edition. The Nintendo Switch this week is getting Aces of the Luftwaffe, Squadron Nebelgeschwader. Of course, Nebelgeschwader is the only word I don't trip over this time. Fortnite Deep Freeze Bundle, Gris, My Riding Stables, Life with Horses, Project High-Rise Architects Edition, SNK 40th Anniversary Collection Limited Edition, which I picked up on the way to the show. So I'm going to be poking at that and let you know how it turns out between breaks. Chalk Dash Carnival, My Hero 1's Just as Playable Character Inasa Yoarashi, Palm Reading Platinum, YouTuber's Life OMG Edition, then Geshizu Gaji Gaji Nakama wo Sodateo, which is some kind of like hamster virtual pet, Hopiko, Johnny Turbo's Arcade Heavy Barrel, Mace Space Shooter, which I don't believe is related to Mace the Dark Age, unfortunately. Mimpy Dreams, Mother Russia Bleeds, Rockets, Rockets, Rockets. SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzies is getting Miss X on Switch as well this Thursday. Soap Dodgem, Solitaire Battle Royale, which I had a bit of a freak out over last week. How can you have a Battle Royale of Solitaire? But hey, everything needs Solitaire. Everything needs Battle Royale, why not Solitaire? Everything needs Solitaire, why not Battle Royale? Super Hydora, Tin Boy, Trailblazers. Then, on Friday, we are looking at Circle of Sumo, Mars, Chaos Menace, and then the big one for this week, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Sid Meier's Civilization 6, Super Mario Party Neon Green, Neon Yellow Joy-Con Bundle, Toast Time Smash Up, and Trailblazers. 3DS this week is getting nothing. 3DS isn't getting anything for a while, and the Vita is getting Slayaway Camp Butcher's Cut. Moving on, next week we are looking at, on PlayStation 4, Achtung! Cthulhu Tactics, The Forest of Fear, ATV Drift and Tricks Definitive Edition, which can go... ATV Drift and Tricks is a scam. Don't buy that game. It is actually literally just a recycled copy of, I think it's called MotoGP 4. It's some motocross game that literally just got recycled. There's nothing new there. Anyway, Battlefield 5, Beat Saber, Farming Simulator 19, Flashback, Jurassic World Evolution's Secrets of Dr. Wu, Marvel's Spider-Man Turf Wars, which I guess that would be some more DLC for that. Omen of Sorrow. Oh, that's the physical edition of that. Omen of Sorrow is, I think it's from Chile, and it is a 2.5D fighter with a horror theme. I've been thinking about picking it up. I'm definitely going to pick it up physically. The digital copy's out now, though. Squishies, Storm Boy, the game, Valkyria Chronicles 4, The Two Valkyria. I guess that's some more DLC expansion. Aquamoto Racing Utopia World Champion. Oh, cripes. Darksiders, is that next week? No, I am overshooting. Aquamoto Racing Utopia is week after next. Really? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Xbox One next week is getting ATV Drift and Tricks Definitive Edition, Battlefield 5, Bendy and the Ink Machine, Farming Simulator 19, Jurassic World Evolution, Secrets of Dr. Wu, Valkyria Chronicles 4, the Two Valkyria DLC, I Am the Hero, Achtung! Cthulhu Tactics. Nintendo Switch next week is getting, hey, ATV Drift and Tricks again. Bendy and the Ink Machine, Flashback, Storm Boy the game, Valkyria Chronicles 4, the Two Valkyria, Warframe makes its way to Nintendo Switch next week. And then Adventures of Bertram Fiddle Episode 2, A Bleaker Predicament. ATV Drift and Tricks again, because you can never have enough of releasing the same game. Battery Jam, Nidhogg 2, Party Hard, Word Sudoku by Paugi, and then Forever Forest. 3DS next week is getting nothing, And the Vita next week is also getting nothing. So that concludes our new game releases. How about anime? Well, today is the last day to see Liz and the Bluebird in theaters. So that's a thing. And then, as part of Studio Ghibli Fest 2018, Laputa Castle in the Sky will be in theaters November 18th dubbed, November 19th subbed, and November 20th dubbed. If you are a fan of Japanese RPGs at all, that movie is absolutely a must-see, because, like, nearly every JRPG kind of took gigantic wads from that game. It's actually kind of funny, and other Japanese games. I mean, I've mentioned repeatedly that there's a random guest appearance by Dr. Robotnik that I just didn't see coming. Just that Laputa Castle in the Sky is like the origin of most Japanese fantasy, almost. It's actually very interesting in that respect. Also, Pokemon the movie, The Power of Us, will be in theaters November 24th dubbed, November 26th dubbed, November 28th dubbed, and December 1st dubbed. Good timing, but with Pokemon Let's Go being out and all that. And that sums up our new anime releases for this week, and what games are coming out this week and next week. So, that is quite a list of things. I'm kind of interested in this Aquamoto Racing Utopia. Want to know what the deal is with that. I have a bit of a soft spot for jet ski games, but I have a feeling this already came out? Maybe? I don't know. This requires research. But I have a little bit of a soft spot for jet ski games. Anyway. Yeah. So, that sums up our new game releases and new anime releases and whatnot. So, I am going to kick you back to the music, but when we return, we will discuss the new game, all sorts of different video game news. Cripes, what do we have to discuss today? The, somewhat implosion of Square Enix. Don't worry, Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII are still coming. But there have been some wacky hijinks down at Square Enix. The continued backlash against Diablo Immortal. And, numerous other smaller things that I'll get to once I bring my laptop up. But until then, here is Fire by Clockwork, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. That was Mississippi Hurricane by Anthony Gomes, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV, the Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. No, what's great is when my notes computer doesn't turn itself off, but we can't have nice things sometimes. Anyway, so, during that break, I got an opportunity to poke at the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection, and I have to say, I understand why they're doing the stupid DLC thing. So, cripes. The game is actually... Okay, so the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection is a collection of SNK games from before the Neo Geo days. Because most of the time when people think SNK, they think of the Neo Geo, and their collections generally contain Neo Geo games. Because, you know, they're awesome, and what else would you put on a collection? And so the 40th Anniversary Collection is there to go, hey, they did stuff before that. Games like Athena, Psycho Soldier, and Ikari Warriors. So, okay, that's fantastic. I've got some favorites on here. Got a lot of fond childhood memories of Victory Road. So, I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick this up. 40th Anniversary Collection. It's probably going to be a pretty fleshed out thing. No, it appears to only have 14 games on here. But they are offering more games as free DLC, so that's nice, but why didn't you include more? There's a lot of that's nice, but why didn't you include more? Like, all the games let you choose between the Japanese and English version of the game. Very important for Psycho Soldier, obviously. And certain games even let you choose between the home and arcade version. that is entirely dependent on if SNK made the home version. So Street Smart is on here, but it does not have the home version because the home version was made by Trico. So the games on the collection right now, no internet connection, are Alpha Mission, Athena, Crystallis, which I'm sure that will attract more than a couple people, Guerrilla War, Ikari Warriors 2, Victory Road, Ikari 3, The Rescue, Iron Tank, The Invasion of Normandy, POW, Prehistoric Isle, Psycho Soldier, Street Smart, TNK, and Vanguard. So, there's some good ones on there, but that's a pretty sparse collection, all things considered. The bonus features are definitely where this collection is at, because it has, like, some really obscure, like, advertising pictures, and it's got the concept art for Crystallis, and the design documents for a game called Tangram Q that was never made. 2 issues of the Video Game Land newsletter. The best is probably the Athena guidebook, which is actually a adorable Japanese manga telling you how to win at Athena. You can listen to the soundtracks. And the other one that I really like is the SNK Complete Works 1978 to 1990, which shows screenshots and scans of their games from their 1978 first game, which is called Micron Kit. And yeah, it's got some text explaining what it's like, you know, what the deal is with these games. And yeah, apparently Micron Kit looks like some kind of weird version of Breakout. 1979 Safari Rally, Yosaku, Ozma Wars, 1980 The Monkey / Monkey Friend, Atom Smasher, Sasuke vs. Commander. Things like that. It's cool that it has this wonderful list of games, and there's a part of me that makes me want to say, well, why didn't you just include all of these? It would have been way cooler if we could have had access to all of these games. But at the same time, I kind of understand it because scant few are actually adult-ish. They have some comically lewd games. Emphasis on comically. So I understand why those aren't included, even though they could probably get away with it. They're not, like, actually adult. They're just a bit lewd. But still, very, very funny. One of my favorites, I need to look it up, Paddlemania. It is such a shame this isn't included, because I guarantee when I get home tonight, I am looking into Paddlemania. Because this game, I'm looking at it, and it looks like Windjammers. It looks like some kind of bizarre proto-Windjammers. Even though Windjammers is technically a... Who did make that game? Was it Data East? I think Data East might have made Windjammers. I'm not 100% sure. But the game looks exactly like Windjammers, except sillier. Because you play someone with, like, a giant table tennis paddle, and you're facing off against sumo wrestlers and swim teams? Needless to say, I need this game in my life, and it is disappointing that it is not in this collection, because I need this game in my life, and I just bought this collection. And mostly, a lot of it is the price tag on this thing. This game, not allowed to say prices, but I'm just gonna say, price tag way too high for what you get. As a collector, I like having it, because of the art gallery that they have, but I'm sure if I looked hard enough, I could probably find scans of those on the internet. Sorry for slightly derailing things with that at the start of the show, but that's just what I've been doing right now, is poking at that and seeing what all it was like, because honestly, the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection has not been well explained or explored. It's like, oh, this is a thing that's coming, and here's some of the games on it, more games coming soon. I didn't expect there to only be 14 games. 40th Anniversary Collection, I expected maybe they'd do 40 games, or at least everything from 1978 to 1990, as best they could. Micron Block can't be emulated. Which, that is actually one of those interesting things. there is a certain collection of games that cannot be emulated due to the fact that they were more... How do I describe it? I don't even fully know the explanation for it, but like a lot of the machine was very specialized and it doesn't really... I guess it doesn't use ROM chips is what I'm getting at. Like you can't... I don't think you can actually emulate Pong. You have to simulate it. I remember, like, Sega's Turbo was one that's like that. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there, but speaking of SNK and their celebration of their 40th anniversary, so this caught me off guard. Getting back on track, speaking of the Neo Geo, so a couple months back, SNK released the Neo Geo Mini, which was kind of cool, kind of disappointing. Apparently it's great, except that the external controllers you can plug in are kind of garbage compared to the one that's just built into the unit, and the image you get on your TV is really fuzzy. And it has an international edition and a Japanese edition, which had slightly different games, and each one contained 40 Neo Geo games. They were mildly pricey, but they were really cool, because they were like little miniature Neo Geo arcade cabinets. They had 40 games, they were cool. And I was a little perplexed and disappointed by some of the game inclusions. Like, they had Real Bout Fatal Fury Special, but not Real Bout Fatal Fury 2? They had, like, Blazing Star, but not Pulse Star? Things like that. Well, that's getting remedied. Apparently, they are making a special Christmas edition of the Neo Geo Mini, which comes with 2 controllers and a cable and 48 games. So there are 8 more games in the holiday edition of the Neo Geo Mini than either version of it, including like games that aren't included in either the US or Japanese versions of the Neo Geo Mini. In most of which were ADK games. So we've got World Hero Perfect in there. Wrote down a couple of them. I know the ones that appeal to me. Yeah, Real Bout 2, Ninja Commando is a personal favorite of mine. And Twinkle Star Sprites is in the Japanese one, but not the US one. Well, it's going to be in the Holiday Edition. That's one of my favorite games. So, Twinkle Star Sprites is in there. There's like Ninja Combat and Ninja Commando are both in there. It's like a way, way better version. And the only downside is that it has this garish holiday theme. Like, I'm gonna be blunt. The holiday Neo Geo Mini looks like something you buy for, like, $10 at a shady discount store. Because it's all red with, like, awful-looking gold buttons and joystick. And it's got, little... images of Santa and reindeer on it, and I'm like, okay, this looks way worse than the other Neo Geo Minis, but it's way better in terms of the game content, so I don't know. I'm thinking I that's the thing I want. Unfortunately, they have not announced a price or release date for it. Don't know, like, I'm a little braced for impact on the price, because it's like, I know they're charging ludicrous prices for the HDMI cable and the 2 controllers. So that might be a little bit silly. Let's see. I think we'll get into, how do I want to time this? I guess we'll talk about the Squaresoft implosion after the break. But let's see. Other news, I mentioned, of course, that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee are announced, but also yesterday, the Detective Pikachu trailer is out, because they are making a Detective Pikachu movie, and Ryan Reynolds plays Pikachu. Deadpool is Pikachu. This is a thing. I don't even know how to respond to that one. So, I'm interested to see how that goes. It's a very interesting trailer, because of course you have CG Pokemon that are actually rendered semi-realistically. They look half real, half like living plush toys. It's hard to say what a real living Pokemon should look like. So, it just looks a bit awkward. But at the same time, I'm incredibly intrigued, because even though the Detective Pikachu game I don't think actually sold all that well, due to the nature of it, it's something you can easily make a movie out of, because it doesn't have to be the same story as the game. It's like, this is such an interesting out for doing a Pokemon movie. Because obviously, people have been wanting to do a live-action Pokemon movie for a while. But it's always been one of those things where it's like, how do you do that without it being awful? And this might kind of work. I'm honestly very intrigued to see this movie. Again, since it is, like, just due to the way the movie is being handled, where it's like it doesn't really follow any of the games directly or take place exactly in any of the locations of the game. It's just implied to take place in the Pokemon world somewhere. Might work out. I'm pretty sure it doesn't follow the plot of the Detective Pikachu game. Admittedly, I never played the Detective Pikachu game. It might parallel it, but goodness knows they're changing enough that it could be a different thing. Either way, I'm curious. I am very, very curious about that. And then, of course, I mentioned we've got another Pokemon movie this month. A bit of a limited release. Part of that new Pokemon movie universe. So, yeah, lots of Pokemon nonsense. Because, of course, we got new Pokemon games coming out. And again, I'm actually intrigued. I'm actually intrigued by that. Can't wait to pick that up Friday. Look forward to streaming that. Look forward to being able to play a Pokemon game, like, on a TV, relatively flashy-esque. Cripes, everyone's going to be streaming that game. It's going to be a hoot. Let's see. Where do we go from here? How about we briefly discuss the Blizzard situation? First of all, on the last program, I mentioned that Diablo 4 was rumored to be something they were going to announce at, what's the name of that? At BlizzCon, but they were torn on what direction to take it in, so the trailer got canceled. That was reported by Kotaku, and before I mentioned it, I did roll my eyes and go, it's coming from Kotaku, that's the only source, I don't trust this, and what do you know, it's not trustworthy. It was just quote-unquote anonymous sources. There is no sign that there was ever a Diablo 4 plan to be shown at BlizzCon. Rather, instead, Activision Blizzard has revealed that they are working on mobile games for all of their franchises. Oh, that's going to make people even happier. And the White Knight train continues when it comes to Diablo on mobile. I don't like to talk about this kind of thing on the show because I know it gets weirdly, mildly political, and that's the entire problem here. For reasons beyond all logic and comprehension, folks have decided that anyone who doesn't like the fact that Diablo Immortal is a mobile game is a horrible human being. Quite possibly some kind of, you know what, I'm not even going to say it. But there's a lot of slurs being thrown around towards people who are against Diablo Immortal. And there's lots of people trying to use this sort of sneaky logic where it's like, oh, well, you might have had the point, but the backlash is ridiculous and just going too far. No, it's not. Like, I'm sure there's like one or two guys being a jerk, just like with the whole Waluigi thing. But when Sakurai was being harassed by like one or two people who wanted Waluigi in Smash, and now he's gotten eaten by a piranha plant. How do you feel? So I'm sure there's like one or two people being jerks about it. Maybe 5, maybe 10 even. And I know how 10 people being jerks to you can feel like a lot, but at the same time, but that doesn't reflect every single person who's against this. And I think I don't get it. I literally don't get it. just watching people try to make this some kind of a political issue because people don't want Diablo on mobile phone. Which, for the record, need I remind you, it is a canon entry in the series that happens between 2 and 3. So yes, for the Diablo superfans, they kind of do have to play it, whether they like it or not. They are not happy about that. And again, this could have been handled so much better if they made it a multi-platform thing. Go all Fortnite with it. That could have turned out real good. But of course, it's a reskinned. It's pretty much a reskin of other games this company NetEase is doing. And again, I mentioned a lot of this on the program last week. Blizzard was known for their rigorous standards and canceled nearly completed games. Look up StarCraft Ghost, obviously, but also Warcraft Lord of the Clans. Warcraft Lord of the Clans is leaked. If you know where to look, you can download and play that game and judge for yourself. From my understanding, it's not that bad. It's just, a decent point-and-click adventure, and that wasn't good enough for Blizzard. They used to have high standards. And now they're just letting a Chinese mobile game company reskin a Diablo clone into an actual Diablo. Again, there are reasons behind this. And watching people try to make this a political issue is depressing, especially because the person who started this whole concept of politicizing this works for a PR company. Now, we don't know if Blizzard actually hired this PR company. But I think that's really suspect and does resemble a lot of modern-day PR where you try to say you can't criticize this piece of media because if you do, it makes you a bad person because politics. And honestly, that's disgusting. That is actually disgusting because people try to tie various social issues to freaking media products and advertisement and use it as a way to deflect criticism. And that just cheapens any of these social movements. And it gets even worse when they actually play along and jump on board with this crap, as I'm seeing numerous people do. And to them, I say, screw you. And me and Jim Sterling don't normally see eye to eye, but I have to give him a round of applause on this one by sticking to his principles and his hatred of Activision Blizzard. Because yes, he is getting called a... he's being slandered for not liking Diablo Immortal and saying, no, there's every reason why people should be skeptical of this game. It's Activision Blizzard. They have lost any goodwill I had towards them. It's like, I'm glad that you stuck by your principles there, Jimbo. Anyway, we gotta take ourselves a quick break. So here is The Way I Love You by Bruiser Queen. Here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Stay tuned for more GameBabble Live. Catch ya. That was I'm a Mess by Bebe Rexha here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So we just got done talking about Blizzard and Diablo Immortal and how Diablo 4 was not going to be announced. That was some misreporting. Now it's time to talk about how Square Enix is imploding. So, Final Fantasy 15 has reached its 2-year anniversary. So people were excited. They were doing a live stream to announce all the new developments for Final Fantasy 15, and they announced undevelopments. They announced that the guy in charge of Final Fantasy XV, Hajime Tabata, has actually left Square Enix. He quit. He is moving on to form his own studio and make his own game. Because of this, all of the Season 2 DLC for Final Fantasy XV was canceled, except for Episode Arden. Meaning no Episode Aranea, no Episode Lunafreya, and no Episode Noctis with the true ending. And it is at this point that everyone probably stops and goes, wait, what? There was going to be more DLC for Final Fantasy XV? Yes. Final Fantasy XV has a bit of a weird history. See, originally it wasn't even going to be a new numbered Final Fantasy game. It was originally Final Fantasy Versus 13, and it was a spin-off of Final Fantasy 13 as part of their Fabula Nova Crystallis series. And it looked a lot more like Kingdom Hearts, but realistic. Anyway, realistic in quotes. Anyway, people were really, really excited for the game, but it spent years in development hell. Apparently, Tetsuya Nomura, the guy who was in charge of the game, just kept changing the game on a daily basis, and no work could get done. Eventually, Square Enix canceled the game, making a lot of fans really sad. So they were like, okay, we'll re-announce the game, but we're moving it to PlayStation 4, and it's going to be Final Fantasy 15. And it was at this point they put Hajime Tabata on it to make the game. And even though it quote-unquote spent over a decade in development, really, it was cobbled together in less than 3 years, which for the kind of game it was, that's pretty impressive. Because their main goal was get the game out the door, we'll fix it later. It has taken too long. This is a drain on resources. And so Final Fantasy XV launched. It was a slightly controversial game, but it actually sold really, really well. But then things got really weird, because they were like, oh, by the way, there's going to be 3 or 4 different character episodes where you play as the party members you can't normally play as and find out their backstories. And this, quickly became obviously cut bits of the game, because there are just points where one of your party members leaves and then comes back, and you're just like, what happened? Buy the DLC to find out. But the biggest blow was that shortly after the game launched, like a week or 2 after launch, they announced that they were rehiring voice actors to fix Chapter 13, which a lot of people were coming up on. Chapter 13 was so terrible, so poorly done and ill-conceived, that they actually said they were going to redo it. And this caused a bunch of people to stop playing Final Fantasy 15, because they were like, wait a second, if this game is so unfinished that they are actually fixing a chapter of it now, I'm going to wait until it's finished. So a lot of people stashed the game. They just stopped playing it. And then, a little while ago, they released the Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, which comes with, quote-unquote, all the DLC. And on top of some extra new content, which you could download as DLC for the regular edition of the game if you already owned it. So a lot of people, they saw the Royal Edition, they were like, okay, this is the complete one, it has all the DLC, finished game, now I can play it, now I can sit down with it, now I can give it a real chance. But what a lot of them missed was that when the Royal Edition was announced, they announced a second season of DLC, which included Episode Arden, who is the main villain. He would get his own chapter where you get to play as him and find out more about his motivation. Episode Aranea, Episode Lunafreya, and then Episode Noctis with a proper ending. Hajime Tabata actually asked on his Twitter, do you want a happy ending or a sad ending? And that's the kind of thing that makes you go, wait, you mean you don't have an ending for the game? And honestly, if you've seen the ending for Final Fantasy 15, it's not much of an ending. It's good enough. It's better than the ending to Final Fantasy 13, at least. It's good enough, but it's kind of also a non-ending in a lot of ways. So, does this mean that Final Fantasy 15 is in a permanent state of being unfinished? Yeah, kinda, maybe. it's a very awkward situation that we're in, because it has an ending, but there was going to be an endingier ending, which was left up to fans what kind they wanted. For the record, happy ending won, and to anyone disappointed in that, I'd like to point out that every single freaking game Hajime Tabata has ever worked on involves the main character dying, and people are kind of sick of it. The DLC was just... But this is all very disappointing to a lot of people, because, number one, the game had absolutely no female playable characters in it. And episode Aranea and Luna Freya would have, of course, fixed that. Aranea is a fan-favorite character, and a lot of people really would have liked to have played as her. And Luna Freya desperately needs character development. She is the main love interest for Noctis, and we know nothing about her. She seems completely incidental, and is very different from the love interest that existed in the early versions of the game back when it was Versus 13. A lot of people would have liked to have known who this character was supposed to be. So the lack of these two episodes happening is disappointing. Episode Arden is only happening because it's so far along in development, it's sort of a why not kind of thing. And the standalone version of Final Fantasy XV Comrades comes out December 12th. For those unfamiliar, Final Fantasy XV Comrades is actually a multiplayer expansion for Final Fantasy XV, where you get to make your own character, team up with other people, and hunt some monsters. I actually bought the game on the cheap, used, just to try this mode out. It's alright. But it is going to be sold now as a standalone separate game. They are shutting down the DLC version of it that actually uses Final Fantasy XV's game disc. But, and this is the good news, anyone who already bought it as DLC is getting the standalone version for free, so you miss out on nothing, and honestly, it's going to benefit the game, because not only are they getting more content for Comrades, but it's probably going to run better. Because when I played Comrades, the thing I noticed was that the load times in it were ludicrous, because it's trying to load all of this data that is a combination of on your hard drive and on the disk and part of a single-player game. It was a mess. So them retooling it into a standalone game is good. Obviously, that means they're canceling the DLC version for the PC Final Fantasy XV, and instead the PC Final Fantasy XV is just getting Comrades. And honestly, at the price it's being sold at, I don't know, I might pick it up on PC, just because Final Fantasy XV pushes the visuals of your computer so hard. I downloaded the benchmark and messed around with that. Good times. So, who knows? Who knows what'll happen with that? But it's very interesting to see them do this. Apparently, they have lost a lot of money on Final Fantasy XV, even though it's one of the best-selling entries in the Final Fantasy series. They have tried to keep the game going for too long. And speaking of which, they are still doing a Final Fantasy XIV crossover event with Final Fantasy XV, where me-quotes and whatnot show up and hang out and do things in the world of Final Fantasy XV, because it has those weird timed event festival things. Remember they had an Assassin's Creed one? Anyone remember that? Like, Final Fantasy XV's very nature is bizarre. But yeah, Square Enix is like, we can't keep doing this, we need to abandon Final Fantasy XV. Honestly, they need to move on to making Final Fantasy XVI, and I'm curious to see what direction they go in, considering how successful Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler are, and how much people have been going, can we get a traditional Final Fantasy? I'm wondering if they'll actually entertain that concept. It'd be interesting to see. I'm not going to count on it. And speaking of Final Fantasy projects that are falling through, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT is going free-to-play November 22nd. Also, Yuna is coming to it, so yeah, that's a thing. But that is very interesting. Partially because Final Fantasy Dissidia NT was a freaking mistake. Dissidia, of course, is the Final Fantasy crossover fighter. People loved it on PSP, but the problem was, it was a PSP game. Everyone wanted it on console so they could share it with their friends. Unfortunately, the console version of Final Fantasy, Dissidia, Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, is an online 3-on-3 team-based affair with no local multiplayer. So there's no good way to share it with friends. No one-on-one. You gotta play 3-on-3 unless you, set up matches in a really dumb way. Actually downgraded more shallow combat. And yeah, it was just the way they set up the story mode was really dumb. And so Dissidia NT was considered a huge disappointment by Dissidia fans. There are many who are still going, can you just port the PSP game to PS4, please? And I am on that team, because I never really got into Final Fantasy Dissidia, and a part of that was because it was on PSP. I'd love to play it on consoles, even if it's just a cheap port. Especially if it's possible to play split screen, that'd be really nice. Even if it's just a cheap, quick port, I would rather play the PSP version, because it's a deeper, better game. Dissidia NT was a huge mistake. It worked in arcades, but does not work at home, certainly not in America, because again, as I said, online 3-on-3, that means you can't play the game unless you have 6 people connected. That means that you need 6 people with decent internet connections, because the netcode is not that great. Guess what? That doesn't happen. And on top of that, they offered a season pass for this. This is a thing I always bring up. There was a season pass for Final Fantasy Dissidia NT. And they're still paying off that season pass. The game flopped, but people already paid for content that didn't exist, and they now have to deliver on. I want you to think about that. I want you to think about how utterly nuts that is. So, of course, they're going free to play. They're releasing all this DLC no one is buying. The game's sales have completely dropped off. No one's playing it. They're trying to push it as an esport, but it's just not working out. This is kind of the only way they could go with it, and even with this, I don't know if anyone's going to play it. I kind of want to, because I want to get the alt costume for Warrior of Light and be a fighter, but at the same time, I played the open beta, and I was not feeling the game. So yeah, Square Enix is in an awkward position. At the same time, they are porting Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which makes me happy because I love Crystal Chronicles, but I look at it and I go, you guys are desperate, aren't you? You're spending so much money making Kingdom Hearts 3 that, yeah, you have to just constantly port old games and desperately try to resell them because you don't have a good way of getting money every quarter in your company. Your games are too big, expensive, and take too long to produce. It's a very awkward situation that Square Enix finds themselves in, despite being the premier RPG company. Very strange situation they are in, indeed. So I'm curious to see how that all turns out. I once joked that the Final Fantasy VII Remake would be a last resort. In case of emergency, break glass, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Considering the things they're pulling, maybe they really do need that remake, and unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off. And on top of that, everything I know about that remake makes it look like it is going to be a dumpster fire. I have absolutely no faith in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's going to be a trip to see how this whole mess plays out. Very just interesting to see Square Enix, one of the biggest video game companies in Japan, pulling things like this and struggling in this way. Also, while we're here, a bit of a change of direction. I mentioned the Detective Pikachu movie. The Monster Hunter movie, by the way, is indeed being filmed. There are leaks of the sets in South Africa. It's being handled by the same guy who does the Resident Evil movies. What was that, Paul W.S. Anderson? Yeah, it's gonna involve Monster Hunter monsters invading the real world, and the army's gonna fight them, and it's gonna be dumb. I kind of want to see it. It's just gonna be a Godzilla movie with Monster Hunter monsters, with the Rathalos. They should, you know what? They should really change the title from Monster Hunter to Rathalos, and do it in like the Godzilla font. Just go all in. Good times, good times. Yeah. So I think there's let's see. I'm trying to decide when I want to take the next break in the program. Yeah, I think it might be a good time to take a bit of a break. So we will be back, of course, after a short break with more GameBabble Live. We have plenty of crazy video game news to discuss. But until then, here is ZZ by Kodak Black featuring Offset and Travis Scott here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more game. That was Senorita Remix by Femi here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So let's see, what is the latest in video game news? First of all, Battle Princess Madeline will be coming to most major consoles December 2018. Battle Princess Madeline is a Ghouls and Ghosts inspired game that was kickstarted a little while back. And now it's going to be hitting Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Looks like December 6th. So yeah, that's good. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Bunch of games that are probably going to get censored by Sony. Here we go. Sega's Toshihiro Nagoshi impressed by development and quality of new Sakura Wars. So there is a new Sakura Wars in development. And that is that news comes from Toshihiro Nagoshi is the his creator of the Yakuza series. It's going favorably. It shouldn't be long until Sega has something to announce. They're really excited about it. It's surprisingly good. It's set for modern platforms. And yeah, that's good to hear. Maybe we'll actually get this one. Sakura Wars is it is a long-running dating sim strategy hybrid series that has been going on in Japan for a while. Quite possibly might have been the game series that started the whole dating sim strategy subgenre, which, yes, there are a lot of those in Japan. It eventually seeped over into Fire Emblem, in case you hadn't noticed. So yeah, that kind of started that trend, though Sakura Wars definitely leans more on the dating sim side. So those games, of course, never made it to America. I think one of them made it to Russia, I hear. But for the longest time, we didn't get the games, but we got the anime. We got 10 tons of the Sakura Wars anime. It wasn't until only a little while back that we got Sakura Wars 5, which was set to be the last Sakura Wars game. And it was a very different one because it took place in America and had a completely different cast of characters. The characters from the original made guest appearances, but all the characters we all knew and loved from the anime didn't show up in Sakura Wars 5 as, like, central characters. They just made guest appearances, and the main focus was on this new cast of characters for the American branch of the Imperial Flower Brigade, whatever they're called. The Teikoku Kagekidan. Anyway, so that's the game they finally decided to bring to America, like 5 years after it came out in Japan. And, it didn't do particularly well. Because a lot of the American fan base turned their nose up at it, going, this isn't the Sakura Wars I know and love. I want Sakura Wars 1 and 2, not 5. Well, turns out the company that released Sakura Wars 5 was trying to release the Sakura Wars 1 and 2 double pack for the PSP in America, but because Sakura Wars 5 sold very poorly, Sony just looked at it and said, this looks more like a visual novel than an actual game. We're not going to let you release this. So that went poorly. But that's what you get for being a picky jerk, instead of going, well, it's not the Sakura Wars I want, but at least it's something. I mean, it's not like it was a reboot or anything. It was just focusing on a different branch of the team. But people decided to be picky, and the game flopped. I picked up the PS2 version, because you see, the PS2 version of Sakura Wars 5 actually has separate dub and sub discs. The Wii version that they made specially for America, because it was just a PS2 game in Japan. The Wii version that they made specially for America is dub only, but the PS2 one, they actually give you 2 copies of the game, a dub copy and a sub copy, because the PS2 one was the special edition. And that made me happy, because they made a lot of really dumb name changes and tweaks in the dub version, but the sub version was not. That was always a dream of mine, for them to actually release a game like that. Because Sakura Wars has a lot of talking in it. Anyway, so it's good to hear that the series is not over, that they are bringing it back, and I'm very curious to see what direction they take with it, and if it'll get a US release, as well as how much Sony is... There's so little to censor in Sakura Wars. Then again, Sony's gone mad. I am very happy, by the way, that nearly every single time a lewd Japanese game is announced for PlayStation 4, the comment section on every article I see of it is, here comes Sony, they're gonna censor this one, not gonna be allowed to be released, because they probably won't. I'm just glad people are being very vocal about Sony's recent utterly ludicrous censorship policies, and are pushing Sony about it, making it very well known that this is an issue. So good for them. Good for freaking them. So let's see, what are we going to talk about next? Well, got a big old list of news. Oh, by the way, I was actually looking at that holiday edition Neo Geo Mini, and now that I look at it, I wonder how much of that stuff is just stickers. Because if all I gotta deal with is the off-colored buttons, I just realized the whole red look of the machine is kind of what I wanted in the first place. See, if you've ever seen an American Neo Geo cabinet, they were famously bright friggin' cherry red. And the Christmas edition is bright friggin' cherry red, just with a gold button and stick. But it is the exact right color with the white text on the side. And it's like, if I don't apply the Christmas stickers, this almost works better as a miniature Neo Geo. I think I might kind of like it. Think I might be on board with this one. We'll find out. That's what I'm going to try to get my hands on. I like what I see there, assuming that they don't charge an arm and a leg for it. Let's see. So, first of all, where do we even start? Well, the Tetris effect is blowing people's minds even outside of VR. The game strangely doesn't have any sort of multiplayer mode. It is an incredible trip of a Tetris game. It's made by the guy who did Rez and Lumines, and so as you play Tetris, you're sort of making music, and like the more blocks you make disappear, the more the songs get like more and more upbeat and hectic, and the background animations get more nuts until finally, like, you cause everything to explode and it zooms in. You go to the next background, and it's incredibly hypnotic. Apparently, they do have, like, sort of a retro Game Boy theme for it that shows up during special weekend events. I haven't picked the game up yet, so I don't know all the details, but I've watched some streams of it, and the Tetris effect is incredibly hypnotic. Very interesting game there. Let's see, what else have we got? A new Protect Me night is in development for Switch. Hooray! For those unfamiliar, Protect Me Night is a game made by Yuzo Koshiro's company, the guy who does who did the music for ActRaiser and Streets of Rage. He has his own company, and they made a small little indie game called Protect Me Night, where you played one of 4 different classes and were like building defenses and trying to protect a princess. It was kind of a like retro 8-bit horde mode game, and the original was released on Xbox Indie Games, believe it or not. A sequel named Gotta Protectors was eventually released in America on 3DS as a download. And now the next one is set for the Nintendo Switch. Which is good. The 3DS was a terrible place for that because you want to have both local and online multiplayer for that game. Which, if I recall correctly, I think the Xbox Live Indie Games one might have been like that. I forget. I swear I remember playing that with friends. Either way, I'm hoping that's the case with the Switch one. That'd be really good. Next up, Zoids Wild King of Blast is coming to Switch in Japan February 28th, and it is set to be a one-on-one Gundam Versus style mecha arena fighter, but with Zoids. Cool. New features are set to come to Undernight Inbirth EXE latest. No clue what they are, just there will be, quote, surprising new features. They just concluded a tournament in Japan. Big ol' Undernight Inbirth EXE latest tournament, and at the end of it, the developers were like, yeah, we're going to be releasing some stuff for this. Stay tuned. It's like, okay, that'll be interesting. Moving on. Swery's The Good Life is coming to Xbox One as well. I believe it's already set for PC and PS4. I forget if there's a Switch version. There might be. I think they were poking at a Switch version, but they didn't want to officially announce it yet. But they have, like, a demo of it running. The Good Life is a game from Swery where you play a lady who goes to this town in Europe to which is said to be the happiest place on Earth, but there's been a murder and she's investigating it. But come to find out, everyone who lives in that town turns into either dogs or cats, depending on which mode you pick, at night. And that includes her. So that's interesting and weird and Swery. Meanwhile, so that's coming to Xbox One now. Microsoft has bought In Exile Entertainment and Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian being the people who did Knights of the Old Republic 2. Not 1, but 2. They've done some other games. I think I heard they did Alpha Protocol? Either way, they bought them. Moving on, how about that Quiet Man? A new update has been released which adds sounds and subtitles to the game, so that way you can find out what's actually going on. Okay, for those unfamiliar with The Quiet Man, it's become a bit of a running joke. It is a new game inexplicably released by Square Enix, which is like 90% live-action movie and like 10% kind of crappy beat-em-up. It's become a bit of a running joke, and part of the problem was that they decided they were going to be artsy and pretentious, and the whole concept is that the main character is deaf. And because the main character is deaf, there is no audio, and there's no talking and no subtitles for the game. So 90% of the game is a movie where you don't know what's going on. Apparently they had an audio track for it laying around, though, and they are patching that in, which that'll be amazing, because I'm sure the acting is just top quality. I mean, considering their original intent was just to remove it altogether. I'm very curious how that's going to go down. Meanwhile, a new Ys is set to come out September 2019. I greatly enjoyed Ys 0 and Ys 8, even though I did not enjoy previous Ys games. I think I like the direction they're going in. I'm curious to see what 2019 brings us. And Super Smash Bros. Ultimate demos are coming to Best Buy and select shopping centers as part of a Nintendo Switch advertising tour for the holidays. Which, on that note, cripes, Smash Ultimate is almost here. Like, that's crazy to think about to me. It's almost time for Smash Ultimate. We've only got, like, a couple weeks left. It's almost time. I'm beyond excited. I gotta get things set up for that. Especially because a friend of mine was like, he wants to throw a launch day party for Smash Ultimate. He's like, he wants to just invite a bunch of people to crash at his place and spend the entire night playing Smash Ultimate. It's like, that's the best idea. Especially because I still want to know about that rumor. There was a rumor that you would be able to use your amiibos to unlock characters early. Because if you don't remember, Smash Ultimate, at the start, you just start with the characters from Smash 64. You have to unlock almost the entire roster of that game. And it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. But then there were some rumors based on descriptions that Best Buy had for certain amiibos that maybe if you put an amiibo on your Switch, it would automatically unlock that character, or at least cause a fight with them or something, so you could get those characters early. This is not confirmed. It is a rumor based on a reading of the wording from a Best Buy description, but I'm really hoping for it, because if that's the case, then that's going to be a heck of a party. Because he has a ton of amiibos, I have a ton of amiibos, I've got a Wii Fit trainer. So, bought that launch day, hence why I have one. So, yeah, if we combine our amiibo collections together, we will unlock so many characters so fast. I think that's going to be really awkward to a lot of people who are still insisting that Smash Ultimate is a port. That is such an awkward situation with that argument. I know how stupid and childish it seems, but it's one of those things where the more familiar you are with fighting games and how much data they recycle between releases, especially 3D fighters like Soul Calibur 6 and Dead or Alive 6, if you're familiar with how much data gets recycled between these games, you know why it is dicey to call Smash Ultimate just a port, because there are more differences between Smash Wii U and Smash Ultimate than there are between Soul Calibur 5 and Soul Calibur 6. I am going to say that. And I know a lot of people are going to give me the stink eye for that, but I'm still a little salty. On that note, more bugs have been found for Soul Calibur 6, but we'll have to wait until after the break for me to get back on that train. So anyway, here's Workin' Me by Quavo here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for some more GameBabble. That was My Blood by 21 Pilots here on 89.5 FM KCFV, The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. And good news! The Soul Calibur 6 hate train is put on hold because one of the people down here at the station was all like, hey, why haven't you talked about Spyro yet? And it's like, I haven't picked up Spyro yet. And she's like, we've got to talk about Spyro. So introduce yourself, let's talk Spyro.
Hey, this is RK9 hanging out with you here. I'm usually here on Wednesdays from 4 to 7, but I am here to talk video games with you. What's up?
What is up? So, yes, apparently the other night, the Spyro trilogy.
Last night,
Spyro Reignited trilogy finally came out. It got delayed due to some bugs, as well as people being angry about the fact that only the first game was on the disc and the rest had to be downloaded, and that was a whole mess. But so it finally came out, and I was able to catch a little bit of a stream of some people speedrunning the game the other night, so I saw a little bit of that. But you actually played it, so tell us what you thought.
So I got Spyro last night at 11 p.m. because the digital version just like happened to be available. Because I got the digital version because I was like, I want to be able to play this now. And I've literally been counting down because Spyro was my childhood, and I am so thrilled to see how amazing it looks. Like, I've started the first of the 3 games that are available, which is Spyro Ripto's Rage, and Spyro Year of the Dragon. And the first one is where you have to go rescue all of the dragons because they made a mistake and got somebody mad, and, well, let's face it, that's what always happens in video games. But the graphics on this game got a huge upgrade. And the interesting thing about it, and I was talking to Jell about this, that unlike Crash Bandicoot, which also came out... Wait, when did that come out? Was that last year?
Yeah, that was last year.
I think that was last year.
The Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy,
Yeah. Kind of like the Insane Trilogy, we got the first 3 Crash Bandicoot games, but that was more of a revamp, whereas, like a remaster, but this is like a reboot, because they did not actually have the files for the original Spyro games available, so they had to do everything from scratch. And let me tell you, like, going back and playing this, I can still see, like, it looks insanely like the original games, just way better. The graphics are phenomenal. The animations are really adorable. Like, when you stand still for too long, I've literally been playing this for the past, 12 hours. Not really. But, I can't remember the dragonfly's name. I feel like a horrible person.
I think it was Sparks.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm, tired, sorry. But if you stand still as Spyro, Sparks literally gets up in the player's face and be like, hey, why are you not doing this? But it's gotten a lot better, even though, and I was talking to you about this because you said that you were watching speedruns, and that they were talking about how some of the physics wasn't...
Yeah, the physics... The thing with speedrunners is they are the absolute most sensitive to any changes in a game because they are relying on crazy frame-perfect tricks, and so they noticed that the physics were a little bit off in Spyro 1, and that screwed them up. Apparently, Spyro 2 and 3 are much more similar, which, amusingly, literally the exact same thing happened with the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, was Crash 1, the physics were a bit off, and 2 and 3 were far more accurate.
Yeah, I can attest to the physics being a little off, because there was a specific one, I think it was called Dry Canyon? Yeah, Dry Canyon, where you have to, jump high and then, glide around a couple of things and land on this other platform. But if you don't do it at the exact way, you drop to the ground, and you have to go all the way back around and do it all over again. And I think I spent 2 minutes trying to just do that because it just would not work, and it made me so mad.
I could see that. One of the other things worth mentioning about the Spyro trilogy is the fact that it was made by Toys for Bob, whereas the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy was by Vicarious Visions. Now,
yes,
the interesting thing about these two companies is that they are the ones who were working on the Skylanders series when that was a thing.
Yes.
Toys for Bob actually kicked off the Skylanders series. Vicarious Visions was brought in to do some of the in-between ones, and they honestly made the better ones. As much as I respect Toys for Bob, Toys for Bob is a much smaller company. They've probably grown since doing Skylanders, but still, Toys for Bob was a rather small company, and so I was surprised. I'm very surprised and pleased to hear that apparently the Spyro Reignited trilogy has turned out pretty darn good, all things considered.
Yeah, what I've played so far, which is only 1.5 of the worlds of the first game. Not worlds, but the stages, which each stage has 4 or 5 different worlds on it. But I played 1.5 of those, and it's gorgeous. They did a lot of work making this as amazing as it is.
That is very, very good to hear. Yeah, I should consider picking that up, because the thing with me, I barely played Spyro. I only ever played demos of it. I never owned any of the games.
That was the opposite for me, because you told me that you were a Crash Bandicoot kid, right?
A little bit. I didn't like Crash Bandicoot until way, way later. It's weird.
I love all of the Spyro games. Out of the Crash games, my favorite, like, the one that I really only played was Crash Bandicoot Warped, and the only reason I really played that was because of the 2 levels with Coco where you get to ride a tiger.
That is good times. By the way, you do know that you can play as Coco for almost the entirety of them now.
Yes, but that was that's a new thing. That was not the case on the original games.
No, it certainly was not.
And I was talking about the original games because I've been playing Crash Bandicoot.
Insane Trilogy.
Thank you. My brain is not working today.
That's okay. That happens.
I've been playing that, and you're right. You can play as Coco, and it's kind of hilarious to see what you can do as Coco. But like in the original game, you could only play as Coco in Warped on the Tiger level, the Pirate level, and what was the other one?
I don't know. I guess the Pirate level is probably the Jet Ski level.
Yeah, that one. That's what I meant. Jet Ski. I thought there was another one, but maybe I'm mistaken it for something else. I digress. But yeah, like I've been playing both of those, and the work that had both games put into them is phenomenal, and I really do suggest you pick them up.
Yeah, I will definitely have to look into that, give that a bit of a spin. And for anyone unfamiliar with Toys for Bob and like why I even remember them, that's because they're the people who way, way, way back in the past did the Star Control series, Star Control 1 and 2.
Why does that sound familiar?
You might have played them. I mean, they were on both.
What was it? What game? What kind of game was it?
It was a spaceship strategy game.
Oh, I didn't play that, but my dad did.
Yeah, and then when the two ships like actually meet, it goes into an action fight thing where you fly around and shoot at one another.
Yeah.
And Star Control 2 I know is completely nuts, and I remember like the 3DO version was the best until they recently-ish ported all the 3DO features to PC, and there's like a free best version of Star Control 2 floating around. I think it's called like the Urquan Masters. Anyway, Star Control was considered a bit of a classic, and it's actually interesting how much they stuck with the whole strategy game that then has an action battle system theme for a while. Apparently they did Pandemonium as well, but I only see them listed for the first one. And Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, which is a game that I think only I ever cared about. So yeah, like, the Skylanders was definitely their big breakthrough, and they always made the weaker Skylanders games, in my opinion, but it's good to hear that they've done a good job with the new Spyros, or the remakes of Spyro, and it is going to be interesting to see where these companies go from here, because I'm assuming that now that the Skylanders series is over, that they might actually try to make new Spyro and Crash games.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's where they're going with this. I don't know what Vicarious Visions is up to right now. Do they have anything listed as being released? No, just the Insane Trilogy is the last thing they really have listed. So whatever they're working on in secret. That'll probably be revealed next E3.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thank you very much for joining me for a bit of Spyro talk. Got anything else to say about it?
Go play it. It's really fun. I'm personally, like, I'm going to make sure I play through the first and the second game, but my favorite of the 3 was always Year of the Dragon, where you have to go rescue all the babies. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they did with that one.
So, all right. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. See you later.
Okay, I guess it's time to get back to our regularly scheduled Soul Calibur 6 hate. So yes, as I mentioned, Soul Calibur 6, more bugs have been found. Let's see. I think I might have mentioned in previous episodes that the teleport bug from Soul Calibur 5 is back when, if you are standing close enough to an opponent when they do their super move, you can rapidly mash, like, up or down on the D-pad or joystick, and when their super animation ends, you'll teleport behind them and their super will miss. So that's back. Speaking of supers, though, it turns out that Voldo, when he is transitioning into his back turn stance, he can do a super move or a soul charge for free. No meter required, and it's super easy to do. So that's a fun bug we've got. And Ivy can just completely break the camera. There's some footage someone did of, like, interrupting her super in a particular way to get the camera stuck, and then they just started pushing the opponent off the camera. So, lots of good bugs, once again, as if Soul Calibur wasn't always buggy. I mean, technically, even Soul Calibur 2, which is widely regarded as the best, is, rather buggy. But, yeah. Now, obviously, we live in, different times now. These will likely get patched out, but, it's another argument, in against of, Soul Calibur 6. Because one of the things, the big problems with Soul Calibur 3, 4, and 5, you know, the dark age of the series, was, oh no, the games are incredibly buggy, and that, you know, that was one of the things people always complained about, was that the games were really buggy. They had some big problems. Some of them got a little bit patched in Soul Calibur 4 and 5 since they were online, but Microsoft's patching system was stupid. Back on 360, it's good to see that that is resolved now. But yeah, they always had big game-breaking bugs and minor issues which dragged them down. They always had a decently sized moveset and responsive controls, and shoot, Soul Calibur 5 actually has better netcode than Soul Calibur 6. Me and a friend were giving that a spin the other night, and we're quite surprised by that. So, I just find the fact that there continue to be some really, really bad bugs kind of amusing. Because, of course, everyone is hailing Soul Calibur 6 as the glorious return to form for the series. The Dark Age is over. Hooray, Soul Calibur is back. And because of that, we can ignore the fact that that 90% of the content is friggin' recycled from Soul Caliburs 4 and 5. No, we're gonna rejoice over the fact that, oh, this one's the good one, right, guys? Except it still has horrible bugs. I do hope these bugs get patched out. I do hope Soul Calibur 6 eventually becomes a good game, but I'm still iffy on Reversal Edge. I'm still iffy on a lot of that. Like, even if you defend Reversal Edge, there's no denying the fact that it grinds the game to a friggin' halt to do the stupid animations. So, I've complained about Soul Calibur 6 for way too long. We need to put that on ice, especially because I need to get these all approved and put up. But me and my good buddy Horseplay, we actually streamed some Soul Calibur 6 a couple of times in order to talk about its problems. The streams were a bit of a mess. They were very podcasty. He was half awake because we kind of streamed at like 11 p.m. to like 2 a.m. And so he didn't exactly have the energy to bring all of his hate. But we explored some elements of those games. The second stream, I actually hooked up the 360 and brought out copies of Soul Calibur 4 and 5 to compare. And to their credit, they did redo the faces very nicely in Soul Calibur 6, for the most part. But looking at them, once you look at the character's feet, of all things, if you actually look at the character's feet, of all things, you do realize that they are indeed recycling the same models in Soul Caliburs 4, 5, and 6. Which, again, that's not the problem. The problem is the lack of content, the sheer number of cut characters, the fact that Tira was completed before the game was released and yet still sold as DLC, even though she was in the beta. Things like that. You know, it's not that the game is bad, it's that I can feel that I'm getting screwed over. And, Soul Calibur 6 is a bit of a mess. And so we have We have some hate streams for that. And then last night, though, if there is one stream to actually watch, like those other two, it might be a bit iffy. Might not be worth watching. But last night we streamed Soul Calibur Legends, aka the game that I think Namco forgot they made. Because they have this reel in Soul Calibur 6. You can go to the options, watch this movie, and it's this 20th anniversary movie. And it shows little clips of the intros for all the Soul Calibur games, including the PSP port of Soul Calibur 4 and the stupid free-to-play Soul Calibur back on PS3, except for Soul Calibur Legends, which was the Wii hack-and-slash spin-off of Soul Calibur that was released between Soul Caliburs 3 and 4. I don't think most people even remember that game came out, and it's not particularly good. But oh, egad, I was having a blast streaming it, just because the more you look at it, the more you go, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. To its credit, it has some of the best left, right, up, down waggle detection I've seen on Wii, for the Wiimote. Unfortunately, the nunchuck is another story, and improper dodging with the nunchuck usually gets me in a lot of trouble. But yeah, that game is super fascinating, because it's this dumb Soul Calibur spin-off that no one talks about, and has a really dumb story that contradicts a lot of things and a lot of dumb mechanics. It's a really basic run from room to room, beating up guys hack and slash, which has numerous problems. The game got a lot better once I unlocked Sophitia, though. Siegfried's obviously the main character, but Ivy and Sophitia and Astaroth Alpha and Mitsurugi and Taki and Lloyd Irving from Tales of Symphonia are all unlockable characters that you can play as, and you can actually do, like, tag team with them. And yeah, Sophitia drastically improved the game because she is way faster and more responsive than anyone else. Admittedly, I don't have Taki yet. And yeah, so that'll be a fun stream, because that is the Soul Calibur Legends is the game that teaches us that Leonardo da Vinci knew all about the Soul Edge. Yeah. It's dumb. Leonardo da Vinci's a character in it. That happened. We had to rescue Leonardo da Vinci from the evils that were in his house. Siegfried and Ivy using the Soul Calibur. No one in that time period raising a question, raising an eyebrow at Ivy's attire or anything. That's just normal, I guess. Oh, Soul Calibur Legends. The hits just keep on coming. You see, we needed to talk to Leonardo da Vinci because we had to slay Fafnir, you see. And Leonardo da Vinci, he invented a weapon that's good for slaying dragons. It's a magical game. That stream, I will get it up on the GameBabble YouTube channel as soon as I can, which, for the record, is separate from the GameBabble Live YouTube channel, because GameBabble Live, that has an archive of episodes, which, if you're tuning in late and you missed the show and you're like, oh man, I wonder what Jell was talking about earlier in the show. Could he have been talking about the bizarre situation at Square Enix or the continued backlash against Diablo Immortal? Yes, I was. So if you're tuning in late, don't worry, because I am uploading every single episode I can of GameBabble Live to the GameBabble Live archives on YouTube. Just search up GameBabble Live archives. It's GameBabble, all one word. If you put a space in there, you'll find two guys named Phil and Rick. I know nothing about them. I am not associated with them. That is a completely different GameBabble. So look for GameBabble Live, all one word. Well, GameBabble's all one word. The Live is separate. You get the idea. You should slam face first into one of my friggin' episodes. That'll lead you to the channel, because I've uploaded over 60 of them. And each one, you can either listen to it on YouTube or download the MP3 off of my Google Drive. So, good times with that. Certainly going to be splicing this sucker together after the show, so that way it can go on there as well. Anyway, time for us to take a quick break, and then we will be wrapping up the show by talking about the miniature Fix-It Felix Jr. arcade machine, which I finally managed to get my hands on one. And there's some interesting things to discuss with this weird device. So stay tuned for that. Until then, though, here's Endless Night by Trivium here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much. That was Remind Me to Forget by Kygo featuring Miguel here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. Welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m., meaning we are indeed wrapping up the show. But if you've missed the show, don't worry. I'll be putting it on YouTube soon enough. Just go on there, look for GameBabble Live Archive. That's GameBabble, all one word. If you put a space in there, you'll find two guys named like Phil and Rick, and I don't know who they are. But GameBabble, all one word, Live Archive. You should find at least one of the episodes, and that'll take you to the channel. Because, of course, they're not letting me give it a custom channel name because YouTube loves to change their policies. Aren't they just delightful? Anyway, we are wrapping today's show up by talking about the Fix-It Felix Jr. mini arcade cabinet. Which, let me see something on this. Okay, I at least stored that. I'm running a few more tests with it. Let's see. No, okay. That answers the last question I had with it. So, you're probably going, Fix-It Felix Jr., that's a game that doesn't quite ring a bell. Of course not. It's a game that doesn't exist. Well, kind of exists, half exists. It's the game Disney made up for the movie Wreck-It Ralph. It's the game Wreck-It Ralph is supposed to be the villain of, Fix-It Felix Jr. Yeah, that one. They've made a miniature arcade machine of it. And it's selling kind of well. This might wind up being one of the hot Christmas items because it's not particularly expensive, and it's a game that doesn't actually exist, kind of. Like, Disney did make promotional Fix-It Felix Jr. arcade machines, but you'd generally only see them, like, at Disneyland or premieres for the movie and stuff. I've never gotten to actually play a real Fix-It Felix Jr. cabinet, but I have seen them in action. And as such, you know, one of the only ways to play a home version of Fix-It Felix Jr. is to buy the miniature arcade cabinet. But unfortunately, it is not arcade accurate, which is unsurprising, because these little miniature arcade cabinets generally wind up running the NES versions of games. And usually their screens aren't stretched right. But the Arcade Classics line has recently made a change to this. Their two most recent machines, which are Ms. Pac-Man and Fix-It Felix Jr., are actually running custom ROMs specially scaled for their screens. Very nice. So their Ms. Pac-Man is not improperly stretched, aside from the text that says ready. But yeah, it is a weird specialty build. It doesn't have like the intro sequence and stuff. And Fix-It Felix Jr. is much the same way, where it's this weird specialty build. So what makes it different from the actual proper arcade release? Well, number one, there's no jump button. The arcade release, Felix actually jumps from window to window, whereas this one, you just move left and right, and he like sort of teleports from window to window, rather than you having to press a jump button in order to jump. This is actually akin to the Flash version of Fix-It Felix Jr. that was on the movie's website. The other difference is it does not have the excessively long-winded opening from the movie. Because the game, the arcade version has this, the game is supposed to open with, Wreck-It Ralph having his stump moved, and he's all, hey, who moved my stump? And then they build this apartment, and he's gonna wreck it. Oh, fix it, Felix. And that's the other thing. For some reason, this I think is the most egregious oversight. Okay, fine, you're going to skip the excessively long-winded intro, but there's no voice clips in this one. And I find that very strange. You would think that it would at least have, I'm going to wreck it in there, but no, nowhere to be found. I can only assume that they would like have to pay royalties to the actor or something, but yeah, it also doesn't have the, like, it has the text for Fix It Felix, but you don't have everyone screaming, "Fix it, Felix!" So, it's certainly missing those things. Now, initially, I was thinking this would be an inferior NES version of the game that they had to make up specifically for this, because most of these mini arcade machines are running NES on a chip, and improperly scaled at that. But no, judging by the visual effects, this is definitely a custom program for whatever new chipset they are using now. I mostly say that because after you clear one of the buildings, it does the sequence where Felix gets a medal and a pie and they throw Ralph off the building, and the medal does a little sprite scaling effect. And you wouldn't really be able to do that on an NES game. I mean, there's ways to flub it, and maybe they did. Maybe they used a whole lot of the game's memory in order to get the sprite scaling effect on the medal by just, like, rendering each frame of it shrinking down. That's possible. But it's also possible that this is actually not running on an NES on a chip for once. It is actually a custom game. Either way, it's regardless of that fact, it's neat because it's a miniature arcade machine for a game that doesn't exist, and it has the proper cabinet art for the made-up arcade machine for the movie. And, you know, it's exactly G.I. Joe sized. I know this because I've compared action figure sizes on all the mini arcade machines. The My Arcades are exactly He-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles size, whereas the arcade classics are exactly He-Man and Kenner Star Wars size. Yes, these are important things, because one of the best things I like to do is just build a miniature arcade with the miniature arcade machines. The build quality on it, of course, is on par with the rest of the arcade classics, which, if you haven't looked into these ones, they're the ones you actually find in the toy aisle instead of the electronics aisle. They are very cheap. The plastic feels cheap. The buttons are all the same size, whether it's the start button or a shoot button. They're all about the size of a Smartie. The joystick, you know, it's cheap plastic. You can feel the split on it, and it's on like a spring and can be pushed into the unit. The marquee is actually not properly sized on the Fix-It Felix Jr. because, of course, the actual arcade machine... Like, this is generally a problem with all of the mini arcades, especially the arcade classics, is that since they're not redoing the artwork, sometimes their banner is too short and too wide, and so there's sort of black bars on the side of it. Also, my particular machine has 2 marquee stickers slapped on top of one another, and I'm suddenly getting a phone call. That's wonderful. They can leave a message. I'm on the air. Whoever you are. What was that? That's a 312. That's an interesting area code. But yeah, so like they're definitely a little cheap feeling, but at the same time, they're also cheaply priced. One of the other complaints, like actually playing the game, I've noticed a few things. First of all, I saw someone reviewing this on the internet, of course, and they were surprised at how fast they beat the game, and they thought there would be more, and it's like, oh, egad, you don't know retro arcade games. Because, you know, they made it to the top of the building, threw Ralph off, hey, got the medal. Yeah, that was Stage 1. Stage 1 is only 3 screens long. Because, you know, you fix all the windows, you move up the building, fix more windows, move up the building, fix more windows, then you fixed it, and Ralph gets thrown off the building. But the next building is taller and has more hazards. It starts to introduce ledges that you can't jump past, as well as ducks. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ducks are a much greater villain than Wreck-It Ralph. Those ducks are mean, because they, of course, knock you off the building. I think it's a little hard to tell if you're going to get hit by one of Ralph's bricks. The barriers that tell you where you can and can't move aren't particularly visible on this screen. They're a very dark color. So I think that's a bit of an issue. The game the difficulty on it is very uneven as well, because it is way, way, way too easy for like 90% of the game, and then is stupid hard for like 10%. It's something like that. And not even like consistent build-up, too. Like, the last screen of... I was just playing it during that break to get a better idea of what we're dealing with here. The last screen of Building 3 is absolutely brutal. You've got barricades, you've got 2 ducks and Ralph. You know, I lost a good number of lives to that one. And then the first area of Building 4 is a cakewalk, as is the second area of Building 4 and the third area of Building 4. And I nearly made it through all of Building 4 before it got hard again. It's like the lower levels always remain easy, and it isn't until you get higher on the building that they get hard. Also, the game spews extra lives at you very frequently. And there's, of course, a reason for this. It's because Fix-It Felix Jr. is not a real arcade game. So there was no interest in kicking you off the screen and getting your money. It's a thing made for a movie, so they're all like, oh, little kids are going to be playing it because they like the movie Wreck-It Ralph. We better make it ridiculously easy, at least for the first couple stages. Like I said, last screen, Building 3, very hard. The difficulty does ramp up, but by that point in time, you have like 5, 6, 7 lives stashed up. So you can power through that until you get to the next actually hard area. Also, yeah, the movement between the ledges on the building definitely doesn't feel as responsive as it should be. So basically, it's not that great, but at the same time, I'm glad I own it because it's a miniature arcade machine for a game that doesn't exist. And I think that's really neat. And I'm just noticing that on the artwork around where the screen is, they actually cut off one of the circles. Anyway, so there you go. Now you know about that. I think that one's going to be interesting to watch because this has been out for a couple weeks, and it's been very hard for me to get my hands on one because no one saw it coming. There was no... I did not know they were making it. There was no advertising campaign for it. And it's part of a series that has already done a bunch of these miniature arcade machines. Like, those things have been around for a couple of years now. And, you know, they're cheap and they've been sitting on store shelves and no one cares. Ooh, I can get a little miniature Joust machine. And it plays the NES version of Joust. That's neat. So, you know, no one really cared about these things all that much. They were just kind of neat. And then, oh, wait a second. Here's a miniature arcade machine for a completely fictional game. Mostly fictional game from a popular Disney movie that, oh, wow, it's getting a sequel. I wonder if that's why we're getting a miniature arcade machine for it. And all of a sudden, those are starting to fly off store shelves in ways that they were not prepared for. So... that is a very interesting development with these things. It has the potential to be the stupid hot Christmas item. Maybe. I don't know. It's something to watch. It's something to watch. I make no guarantees. And like I said, it's not even that great. It's just neat. So there you go. Review of the Fix-It Felix Jr. miniature arcade machine. Because that's what you wanted here on GameBabble Live. What, Red Dead Redemption 2? Ha! What are you talking about? Admittedly, I don't need to discuss that. Everyone else has already talked about it. So yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Please tune in next Tuesday. I should be back from noon to 3 p.m. once again with whatever crazy video game news breaks that week. Miss the show again? Hit up YouTube, look up GameBabble Live Archive. That's GameBabble, all one word. Otherwise, you bump into Phil and Rick, whoever they are. And, yeah, please enjoy. I'll try to get this up as soon as possible, along with the recent live streams I did on the regular GameBabble channel. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Time to kick you back to the music. So here's Over and Over Again by Nathan Sykes, featuring Ariana Grande, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much.